What's up, everyone? Good morning. It's your host, Carlos Ponce, and this is another live episode of Advancio Talks. And if you are just discovering us, welcome. And if you've been here since the very beginning, since 2022, well, you know what we are about. So Advancio Talks is where we sit down with the people actually building the future of business and technology, not just talking about it, but doing it. You know, CTOs, founders, the folks actually making decisions that matter. So, whether you're drinking coffee, commuting, or just curious about what's actually happening in tech, stick around because today we got Channing Ferrer, the CRO and CEO of the Americas of, of Brevo, Brevo, with us today. And Channing's got stories and insights you won't hear anywhere else. So let's jump right in. Welcome to the show, Channing. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Great, thank you, Carlos, and looking forward to the chat.
Absolutely. So are we. So are we. So let's start. Let's start with you first. Just tell us a little bit about you. Tell us who is Channing Ferrer. Anything you want to say about yourself, your journey, your background. Uh, please.
Yeah, sure. I'll keep it short and simple here, but ultimately, I've been with Brevo for about 7, 8 months now, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer globally, and then the CEO of the Americas region for us. I've been in and around the marketing technology world for a long part of my career. Brevo is in the MarTech space, where a marketing automation solution. Uh, Ultimately, I was at a couple other companies in this same space: Semrush, Brandwatch, HubSpot, and Acquia, all kind of in and around here. So I think probably one of the more interesting of those is HubSpot, where I was for about 6 years, and we saw growth from about 200 million to 1.5 billion. But all the other companies also kind of interesting businesses, decent sized businesses. And I think one little interesting fact is I got my career started as a financial analyst, and then solution engineer, and then eventually sales. So that's where I started early days.
See, I see you went through the whole spectrum of the journey. That's cool. That's cool.
Yep.
Especially the sales part is the tricky part. You know, you can have a great product, you have a great idea, great technology, but if nobody buys it, then it's really literally non-existent. So you play a great role. The sales part is definitely a must. So okay, so let's talk about Brevo. Tell us a little bit about Brevo. What's your value proposition? What can you tell us about the company itself?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So Brevo is, as I mentioned, kind of a marketing solution, a customer platform, customer engagement platform. We sell primarily to businesses that are focused on either B2C or B2B2C businesses. So they ultimately usually have some element of e-commerce tied into their website and into their kind of go-to-market strategy. We're headquartered out of France. We're a European company, but we're growing rapidly globally. We just hit the unicorn status. We announced the funding in the fall, actually late fall of last year, with about a $500 million funding round. So again, growing rapidly, seeing lots of success, and again, a little more well-known in Europe than we are in the US, but I think the plan is to change that, build some recognition here in the US as well.
There you have it, folks. So that's a little bit of Brevo. So Channing, let's jump right into today's topic. So we agreed that we're going to be talking about something that I think is really, really cool: the Revenue Architect's Playbook. So it's kind of intriguing. The name itself is intriguing. The Revenues Architect Playbook: Scaling Global Teams from Millions to Billions. So let's start there. Why did you choose this particular topic, and why did you feel it's relevant for this day and age?
Yeah, so it's something that I've had a lot of experience on. As I look back at early days where I was at Capital IQ, which is a fintech company, we grew from $0. I literally joined the business before we had signed our first customer. up to be almost $1 billion in revenue business. When I look at my experience at C2FO, we were a small growing business. I look at HubSpot, again, we grew to 1.5 billion. So I've had a lot of this kind of scaling experience. And I think scaling is such a unique part of growth. So when you think about there's the early days of growing, and that's the startup days. That's before scale. I think startup is kind of getting the business started and founded and getting that initial inertia in place. Once you get through that initial phase of inertia, and that could be your first couple million, could be even up to 10 million maybe in revenues, then you begin to think about how do you scale, how do you really build this business for success in the future, and how do you build systems, the process, the architecture of the overall growth engine so that you can really see the business take off. And I think this idea of scaling is often where a lot of companies run into trouble, and it changes the strategy and approach to scaling changes when you're 10 million versus 100 million versus $1 billion business. There's different elements and strategies you need to be aware of.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for elaborating, Channing. So I've been reading a little bit about your company, your background, and I do have some questions. So I understand that you helped scale HubSpot from 200 million to 1.5 billion. That's with a B in revenue. So tell us, what was the single most critical GTM decision that made that, what, 7 times growth possible?
Yeah. Yeah, obviously there's a lot of them, so narrowing it down to a single one is a little tricky. I'll maybe say the one that stands out to me the most, it's hard to say if this is the most important or not, but the one that stands out to me the most is I'm going to look at it through the lens of sales. And when I think of it through the lens of sales, one of the mantras, the thoughts that we would continuously have, that I continuously had at HubSpot was success breeds success. And what I mean by that is I think it's very important to set up your teams to be successful. And those go-to-market teams, be it marketing, sales, customer success, or otherwise, they need to feel and have visibility for how they can be successful. And in sales, success is defined as achieving quota. Every role can differ a little on that. So what I mean by success breeds success is if your sales team believes they can be successful, they will be successful, and they'll overachieve on that success. If they don't believe those quotas are attainable, if they don't have a belief that they can get to their goals, they'll be frustrated. They might leave. They might not try as hard. So again, I always would lean heavily into this idea of success breeds success. We need to give visibility of success and allow people to feel that success, and then they will be more successful as well. That helped us a lot in our strategy from a sales perspective.
Right. So, well, thanks for sharing the secret sauce. Okay, I'm sure a lot of folks out there who are builders and are paying attention. So tell us, when you're brought into a company, how do you assess whether the revenue problem is a strategy issue or a talent issue or even an execution issue?
Yeah. So what's interesting as you list those three out, I've definitely seen all three. The strategy side can be really the most challenging, I would say. If you're lacking in strategy, it's a rebuild, and that can involve product, that can involve go-to-market, that involves the whole business, because you really need to rethink the strategy, and that might be at the core, the fundamental product layer. And I've seen that. We've had to do that before. When I look at it from a talent standpoint, talent is probably the clearest in many ways. The most important thing, I think, from a talent perspective is making that judgment call quickly and deciding, is this person, is this team, are these individuals going to carry us forward? Are they going to be successful and help us as a business to be successful? And then lastly, on the execution side, we need to always assess execution consistently. So back to your question, how do we decide on this? It's a matter of first assessing in your first 30, 60, 90 days, assessing how strong is your talent. And you need to do a talent assessment right away. That's the first step. Strategy, you should understand prior to joining a business, is the strategy working or not? You can see again, based on the business line they're in and the competition, how they're performing. And then execution, there's always gaps in execution. So I'm always, every job I've taken, we're always focused in on execution. So I don't think it's one or the other. In many ways, it's all of them. But I think talent's the first one to really hone in on and assess.
Right. Good, good. Well, thank you, for elaborating on that part. Now, I have also noticed that you've worked with both active startups and seasoned giants, like literally behemoths. How does your GTM approach fundamentally differ between 10 million startup and 1 billion enterprise?
Yeah, I actually did a talk on this same topic back at HubSpot, because we were, of course, at the time dealing with a lot of young, growing businesses. And I did an analysis because I was speaking with a lot of our customers, and did an analysis on what was driving their success depending on company size. And I broke it down actually into about $1 million in revenue business, about a $10 million, and then about 100 million. Those were the changing points when things needed to change. And that first one, it was kind of 1 to 3 million. Usually you can bootstrap your business to $1 million through friends and family selling, through your network, through maybe some of your investor networks. But then you hit a point where you need to go beyond you as a CEO selling, and your go-to-market strategy has to be developed. In the first million, it's you as the CEO and your co-founder possibly kind of doing a lot of the selling. You need to bring in a salesperson and or a sales team. And so that's kind of stage one. And then as you begin to bring in that sales team, the next step, of course, within that is a sales leader. And what I think is really important there when you're sub 10 million is bringing in that sales leader who's very hands-on. You don't need this very senior sales leader. You want a manager, typically, maybe director level, but someone who can be very hands-on, who can think a little strategically, but there's not a lot of strategic decisions that need to be made when you're doing 3 or 4 million in revenue. You need someone who's going to be closing deals, who's going to be very hands-on with customers. Then as you get past that 10 million threshold, now you really begin to think about strategy, and you need more go-to-market strategy. The CEO is spending less and less of their time on the go-to-market side. So you need someone who can help drive that go-to-market strategy. You need RevOps resourcing. You have to begin to build that's what I would call the surround sound that supports the sellers. So RevOps, sales engineers, BDRs, all those roles begin to come into play. And so once again, you need a new sales leader. Either your current leader can grow into this, or you need to think of someone new who can think more strategically and more holistically around that go-to-market strategy. Then as we elevate and move into the thresholds of 50 to 100 million, now you're really going to begin thinking multi-product. Most likely, you're going to be thinking, how do you manage the retention in a much more effective way? How do your sales team and your CSMs work together? What's your upsell strategy? So once again, you need to kind of rethink leadership. Maybe you have that leader who can grow into that role, which is ideal. If not, you need to look elsewhere to bring someone in. But you usually have a multifaceted go-to-market at this point, and that becomes a lot more complex. And you need to be thinking about it that way. And you really begin thinking about ops becomes much, much more important. Managing headcount, managing quota, managing all these different operational elements becomes really critical to see that scale occur, and right on $3 billion, and thereafter.
Right. Yeah. So that's a great elaboration on the what I would call the strategy and the revenue growth. But I'd like to touch a little bit on the teams themselves, on building and scaling teams and everything that it entails. So tell us okay, let me put it this way: from Advancio's perspective of helping companies with build competitive tech teams, what's the most common mistake you see companies make when scaling their go-to-market organizations?
Yeah, so this varies depending on the stage of the company, for sure. I'd say when I look at early stage businesses, I think one of the things that can get overlooked often is the need for operations and when to bring those resources in-house, or even just when to invest in operational resources. Once you get to that point, as I mentioned, you're kind of at this $10 million threshold, ops becomes an important role in the business. And you want to have insight into what's going on in the business. So I'd say there's twofold within ops. It's number one, investing in the resource. People often will overlook that and the need for that, and they can sometimes make that investment too late. So I'd say
Mhm.
pull that investment forward. Once you have a sales leader, you need an ops person to support it. And then the
Right.
other one, what do you want from ops? You definitely want analytics. You want insights. So ensuring you have your data structure in place where you can get insights properly. There's great software and tools, of course, today to help drive that, but you need to have a good data infrastructure to actually pull the right insights out of the business. So again, making sure your ops person is very capable from a data perspective is really critical, so you can layer in the
Mhm.
right software to help build those insights.
Okay, okay. And I do believe that you champion empowering teams as core to your philosophy, right?
Yes,
So
very much.
how do you balance empowerment with the accountability needed to hit aggressive revenue targets?
Yeah, so I do believe people operate most effectively when they feel empowered, when they feel the opportunity to drive decisions forward and execute. And so that's when we say kind of empowering teams is at my core. I fully believe in that. I think giving leaders, especially, the ability to drive decisions and drive things forward. What my operating mantra is, I like to step back and give people the autonomy, the directors, reports, VPs underneath me, the autonomy to move things forward the way they want to move things forward, so long as we're hitting our goals. And what I love about the go-to-market world is we're very measured. Sales is very measured. Customer success and marketing are all very measured. If we're not hitting our goals, we're not going to build the business the way we want to build it. If sales doesn't hit their quotas, we're going to miss on our revenue targets, right? So when I begin to see someone missing on their goals, and again, all goals should be measurable. When I begin to see us missing on those measurable goals, then I
Mhm.
need to dig in and I go deep, and we'll dig deep on why isn't this working? And I want to help understand them to understand as well as me to understand what's not working. And that could be through analytics, that could be through process, that could be through talking to customers, but we're going to spend a lot of time on that. It might be daily one-on-ones, it might be lots of customer calls, it might be building models together, but we have to go really deep to fully understand if something's not working. So that's how I'll balance it. I default to empowerment, but if it's not
Mhm.
working, then we're going to go deep together to try to solve it.
I see. I see. And when you're building global GTN teams, how do you identify the difference between someone who can execute your strategy versus someone who can help architect it?
Yeah, I think this sometimes comes well. This comes back a little bit to what I was saying earlier on even company size and early days as a CEO. This is again a couple $1 million in revenue as a CEO. You really want someone who can execute on the strategy that you as the CEO has implemented. As you grow bigger, you need that go-to-market leader, that revenue leader who can architect that strategy. So the same concept applies as you're building global teams. And as we think about going into a new market in a new region, is this new market a strategy that's already developed and we just want someone to execute there? Or do we need to architect it? Do we need to define it? So sometimes I think a great example of this is when we went into Japan with HubSpot, we needed an architect. Japan is a tricky market. It's very different than the rest of Asia, the rest of the world, even I'd say, in how they operate. You need someone who fully understands that market, understands marketing, partners, all the elements and factors there to architect a strategy. When I go from trying to think of a simple example here, but when I think of expanding from the US into Canada, I'm okay with leveraging my Canadian teams hate it when I say this, but I've done it multiple times. I'm okay with initially leveraging my US strategy in Canada. Over time, that changes. You want an architect actually in Canada as well. But initially, it's English speaking. You can do a lot of the same, for the most part, at least English speaking. You can do a lot of the same strategy as you have in the US and Canada to get yourself started. Eventually, you want an architect there as well. But again, those are just two simple examples maybe of where you might want one versus the other as you get started.
Okay, okay. Um, let's talk about decisions, strategic talent decisions, if you will. So, um, I understand you have built GTM frameworks that continue to drive success at companies that, even after you've moved on. So, what makes a framework sustainable versus dependent on that leader who created it?
Well, I would say any good framework should be sustainable. So if we're not seeing sustainability from a framework, that means it wasn't a strong framework, most likely.
Mhm.
I believe that whatever we're implementing, we need to be thinking not just the near term, not just this quarter, this half, even this year. It needs to be sustainable thereafter. And over time, that has to evolve, of course. Not every framework is indefinite. Most aren't indefinite. In fact, most need to change every year. But as you think and build frameworks and structures and processes, they need to extend well beyond this current period, quarter, half year, year. A good example of this is promotion criteria. So one of the things that we've done in the past is built promotion criteria that we can leverage going forward. It's not just a simple matrix, but it's often based off of performance metrics. And so you
Mhm.
can say, are they doing the right things? Do they have the right characteristics, but also do they have the right KPIs? And again, in go-to-market, often very measurable. So these are frameworks that we can leverage for this year, but then we can continue to use them going forward. We might change the KPI or the metric, but the same structure and framework is in place. And I think those are the types of frameworks that are best to start with. Build something that's sustainable long term.
And um, I was thinking. I mean, so I got so many questions about so many things because this is a great topic, but we've talked about how you do things, your successes, and basically how to do things well in order to perform at at the highest level. But, however, there could be some warning signs that tell you that a go-to-market team is going to struggle to scale, right? Even if they're hitting current numbers. So, what would you say that these key warnings are? The ones that tell you that the go-to-market team is going to have a hard time scaling.
Yeah, usually scale of go-to-market team is going to be affected by the ability to move into new markets, move up markets, sell more sophisticated solutions, any one of those sorts of things. One example of this, I think, is when I joined Semrush, we had a sales team that was really just order taking, and they were hitting their quota. They seemed to be doing okay hitting their quota, but we weren't growing the business the way we wanted to grow the business. And really what we need to do is shift that team into a true sales mentality. They need to go out and hunt and source and find new leads, not just wait for stuff to be kind of thrown at them and again just take the order. So we can have technology do order taking. Humans need to go out and source and find things and create relationships. So I think when I see a lot of order taking happening, to me, that's a big red flag. And even if
Right.
the team's hitting their goals, that doesn't mean we're doing it the way that we should be doing it. In sales, there's a reason we have humans doing sales, because it's a relationship game. And that's what we need them to do, is build those relationships. So I think that's probably the first clear one to me, is order taking. We need to shift into more of that true selling mentality.
Okay. Okay. And I'd like to take a peek into your mind. I mean, what is your process for understanding a market deeply enough to craft a winning GTM strategy? I mean, how long does that diagnostic phase typically take?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've done as I've taken on new roles is I really focus in on, during my onboarding phase, we'll call it the first 90 days, but this is really the first 30, 60, is go around and meet as many people as I can across the business. And
Mhm.
I'll do it in small group settings often. And senior leaders will do one-on-one, but a lot of the rest of the team I'll do in group settings. And I'll ask three questions. We'll sit down and talk about what's working. We'll talk about what's not working, and then we'll talk about what ideas do you have. And I take a bunch of notes on all this.
Mhm.
And doing all that, you can aggregate all that, of course, leveraging LLMs. It makes it even easier these days. And we can kind of go back and find the themes that are occurring and reoccurring. And we can hear those themes coming from the sales team, the customer success team, the product teams. And then you begin to understand, what do we want to do? Because once you understand the problems, we can begin to think about which problems do we want to solve. We're not going to solve all of them. So we have to narrow down the high priority problems and solve those. We can also see what's working and where do we double down, as I would say. These are the things that we want to continue doing, and we're doing well already. Let's do more of that. Let's invest more in those areas. And then usually there's some interesting ideas floating around that that haven't been brought up from frontline individuals. And I'm curious on those ideas. And we begin to find some ideas that maybe we can accelerate. Maybe there's a theme of ideas that are floating out there. And so we'll kind of, again, capture those and see what do we invest into from the idea standpoint. So that's really helped me to figure out how to build strategies, just understanding as much as possible from the front line on what's going on. I'll try to do the same thing with customers, of course, as well. And the customers can have a slightly different perspective because sometimes they're very immediate and they just did something, they just had an experience very recently. So they can be a little bit shorter in terms of how they think about things, but still very valuable, of course, talking to customers as well.
I see. Okay. We're coming up on time, as they say. Time flies when you're having a great time, right? So this is no exception, unfortunately. So, but I still have room for a couple more questions. So, let's talk a little bit about leadership and competitive advantage. So, in today's competitive talent market, what should tech companies be doing differently to attract and retain the caliber of GTM professionals needed for hypergrowth?
Yeah. So the first thing is go-to-market is going to be continually pushed by AI, and we need to be teaching our teams how to leverage AI. We need to be hiring people with strong AI skill sets. We need to be hiring new types of roles, go-to-market engineering type of roles that help build technology and build AI into processes. So I think in terms of attracting talent, I think the first step is what type of talent do we want? I think anyone with technical skill set can fit well into sales. Obviously, when you have that interpersonal skill set, but also having some element of a technical skill set, even if it's just simply understanding and leveraging AI effectively and LLMs effectively, that's a piece of it. Hiring go-to-market engineers, as I mentioned, is a piece of it. So again, looking for the right type of talent, number one. Number two is attracting that talent. I do think people are looking for education and progression and career personal progression, that is. So the more you can share, here's what you're going to step into day one, but here's also where you can go, how you can learn more, how you can develop as an individual. I think that's really critical. And then thirdly is people like leaders. They want a strong leader. And I think the more as leaders, as we do the hands-on recruiting, we need to be a big part of that. We need to show that we're going to care and look out for all of our individual team members, and we as leaders need to be, again, active in that recruiting process.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Well, my closing question is going to be looking ahead. Like, we always like to think in terms of what's ahead of us, right? What shifts do you see coming in GTM strategy and talent requirements that most companies aren't preparing for yet?
Well, yeah, I think obviously this is going to tie into AI and where's AI going, and it's such a hard prediction these days in terms of how fast will AI evolve the go-to-market motion, how fast will it impact the way we think about marketing, sales, customer success, and so on. And I think that's really the key is looking forward. It's hard to look beyond the next 12 months, but I do think we can have some visibility into the next 12 months. And as we think about this year, what's going to happen with AI, how's that going to impact our go-to-market motions, our sales motions, marketing motions. And I don't recommend we try to think much beyond that. I think let's stay focused for now on the next 12 months, because that's easier. When we begin thinking 3-5 years out, it becomes very daunting to try to understand the impact of AI. So number one, I'd say focus on the next 12 months. And in that next 12-month window, the things that I see evolving are very much on the way we leverage technology, the way we leverage AI and what it does for us. And thus, I think people need to be as educated and knowledgeable as possible on how to use and leverage AI. We're still going to be in the world of agents, I think, this year. True agentic AI, we'll begin to see pockets of that happening, but I think that's still a little bit further off. And what I mean, of course, by agentic being that it's going to be entirely autonomous, where we don't need the human element to be involved. I think we're still a little nervous to do that. So I don't think we're ready for that in the go-to-market side of things. But I do think agents are a key part, and we need to be able to leverage those as much as possible.
Yeah, I hear that, especially when I hear the word leverage. I mean, there's something that comes to my mind, and this is just going to be my closing statement. What do you think, or what's your personal take on? Okay, I'll dare to use the word cliche, because I think it's more of a cliche in social media these days. people are saying a lot. Regardless of the space in which you are, people say a lot that AI is not going to take your job. Someone using AI will. What do you think of that? It's just a cliche, but I just got to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, it is the reality. If we're not using AI, someone else is going to, and they're going to do it that much better, faster than we are. So it's critical to use it. So I think everyone in every role, today should be, of course. And then it comes down to how do you use it and how effectively can you use it and so on. And I think getting to the follow-on question to that is, when will AI take my job? And I wouldn't worry about that yet. Again, I think let's stay focused on the next 12 months. I think if we all can be as efficient and effective as possible leveraging AI, we'll continue to be good go-to-market engineers in a sense. And I bring that word engineer into the mix because I think that's the mentality. We need to be a little technical on how we think about growth.
Right. Let's just make sure that we leverage AI, we use it, we adopt it, we embrace it. We just don't outsource our brains to AI, right?
Right.
That's a different scenario. Okay. Channing, it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show. We've run out of time, unfortunately, but I don't know. I would like to ask you if you have any final words of wisdom for the audience, to something that and it's your time to shine. So, what's your final message in general for our audience regarding all the things that we talked about today?
Yeah, so I'd say we need an LLM to synthesize this for us quickly, but I'll give you my quick non-LLM approach. Is number one, I think the human element is a key part of go-to-market, and that's not changing in the near term. So I think we need to continue to leverage the benefit of relationships, and that's what drives buying, and that's what drives selling and marketing, is that human element, and that's important. We need to find efficiencies through technology to help improve how we think about doing that. But again, that human element doesn't disappear. I think as we think about growth, we talked a lot about growing and what it means to move from millions onto billions. There's a lot of phases that companies go through in growth, and it's important to continually reevaluate which phase you're in, what do you need to be successful. One phase, what you need is going to be different than the next phase. So it's really important to continually, again, take a look at, where am I now? Do I need an architect or do I need an executor? And those will dictate the type of people we need to hire.
Okay. So where can people go to learn more about you? Excuse me, I am assuming you're on LinkedIn, right?
Yes, I am. So feel free to take a look at LinkedIn. You can follow me. I like to post, try to get a couple posts in a week if I can do it. There you have my LinkedIn at the bottom. So take a look.
It's right there at the bottom. Just don't forget the numbers.
Yeah.
I always say that. I have always wanted to ask LinkedIn, how do I get rid of those numbers?
Well, I'd say fortunately, there's not a lot of Channing Ferrers out there. So
yeah, that's a good thing. Just go there and Channing Ferrer, and you'll get it. Channing Ferrer, comma, Brevo. I mean, you can't miss it, folks.
Exactly.
Don't mind the numbers at the end, okay? So that's a good thing. How about your email? Is there an email that you can share?
Yeah, sure. You're welcome to reach out. It's channing.ferrer@brevo.com. There we go. You see it on the bottom as well. So feel free anytime. Welcome to reach out. Happy to connect over email.
And of course, the website, right? You can go to the website and reach out to the company, reach out to Channing. And well, there you have it, folks. Make sure you do reach out. I mean, I believe that there's a lot to be asked about the company itself and how it can benefit you, benefit the viewers. So Channing, it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show. And just a quick reminder for all, or remember that next week we're going to have another Advancio Talks episode. We are yet to announce the guest because we got a couple of confirmations that need to be made on Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Just stay tuned on social media. If you're following us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, just make sure that you keep an eye on the announcements that we're going to be making either tomorrow or Friday. And that being said, Channing, it's been a great pleasure, and please stay with me as we go off the air, and the rest of you guys. Thank you for watching one more episode of Advancio Talks. See you next time.
Thank you.